Welcome to Module 2, Creating Tasks in PBL. In this particular module for Part 1, we're going to go over the PBL playbook, spotting the plays, and Pinterest and Google, a really great place to start. So let's kick it off with the PBL playbook. So, what you experienced yesterday was a melding of two basic ideas about PBL. One from Buck Institute for Education, which is the leader in project based learning, and the other from problem based learning, IMSA. And so both of them have very common characteristics, just they go by two different names. And so, what I'm going to do is actually go over the details of each, but we're going to really set out with the BIE model because it's more expansive, including all sort of levels. And we're just going to really just say project based learning as the standpoint of PBL. But the BIE model has 8 essential elements, the center of which is the standards that you're wanting students to know, but also success skills like collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, things that we don't always really focus in on, but that's a huge piece of the learning process. And then it expands on the sort of how you get to these elements is by including, or how do you get to the content, is by including an inquiry that it's an authentic situation, that the students have voice and choice, reflection, critique and revision, public product, and a challenging problem or question to kick it off. And then with IMSA, basically, they sort of look at it from launching with the understanding the problem. Then the kids basically start to explore the curriculum by solving the problem. So these two models is a huge piece of understanding what PBL is. And so let me just kind of take some time and really unpack each of the elements in each piece. And so when it comes to BIE's model, here's what they're really meaning by these outside red elements. Sustained inquiry is not so much research as much as it is the kids constantly revolving through a process of questioning what they know, questioning what they have in front of them. And then the authenticity is not necessarily that it has to be full blown real world in the sense that the kids have to truly be solving a real life situation, but it can be mimicking the world as well as them solving a real situation. When it comes to student voice and choice, it's not so much that the kids necessarily have to have unlimited voice and choice because sometimes they're not able to withstand that, but they do have a voice in the important matters of the project. And reflection is not just really a journal, but much more about the students truly taking regular times out to think about their thinking and think about what is occurring. And sometimes this is also combined with critique and revision. Once a student has made a certain progress in the process of a project, they need a time to critique and revise what they're doing. And this is often a great time to reflect at the same time. And then their creation is made public. Not necessarily that it's just put on the internet, but truly having someone that they have to defend their process and their thoughts and what they did too. And all of this is tied together by them thinking of a centralized problem statement or a question that they're trying to resolve. And so let's now go to the IMSA model, which is similar, that understand the problem. The details in that is that it involves meeting the problem head on, creating a know, need to know process, which you remember experiencing in in the experience yesterday, and then defining the problem, making sense of it through creating a problem statement. Now, once that's sort of gathered, then they go and explore the learning. And from the student standpoint, that means that they're gathering information, sharing that information with teammates, and using that information to generate solutions for the problem. And that's kind of a cycle process. That's why it's an arrow, and that they sometimes go back to their no statement, they come back to their problem statement and revise it. And they go back to really look at the original problem and make sure that they're still understanding it. And then this cycle sort of solidifies in resolving, them actually saying what the solution is and presenting that solution to an authentic audience, and then coming back and debriefing what occurred in the project problem. Now, for the rest of this sort of learning of modules, we'll really just sit in on BIE's elements. Again, they both have the same pieces, but just so that we can keep talking about project and see how it's inclusive of every subject area, whereas sometimes problem is only thought of in the math context, even though it really is not. It's in every subject area. Just to be cohesive, we'll say project from here on out. So let's kind of dive and see how the project you experienced yesterday had these elements. So if you remember yesterday, you started to look at a client that had a problem with their popcorn container. And so the problem was, how can we redesign their popcorn container? And you experienced one aspect of sustained inquiry, which was that jigsaw activity, where you were in your groups, but you had to separate and discover things about polyhedrons and non-polyhedrons. And the authenticity side of this project was the fact that you really had a real client who had this need, and you followed the process that's commonly followed by that same organizations who solve problems like that. And then the your voice and choice, although you didn't experience it much yesterday, you did have a knowledge of knowing that you got to design the container, and you have the option of what that looks like. You didn't get to experience the rest of these, but you did know that you were looking at doing a two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and a proposal as a product, and that product was being presented to the client. The client, as well as your peers and experts, were going to give you feedback on your process. And all of this was also going to be wrapped up with writing or talking about the process and the content for your reflection. And so now I want you to go and do the assignment that's posted in Edmodo, where you're going to look at a different project. It's actually from a pre-calculus level class. And you're going to basically make comments on the actual lesson plan collaboratively with other people in the group. And you're going to identify different elements. So you just basically highlight and identify it as reflection or sustained inquiry or the content, just as you see the different elements of project based learning highlighted, and comment on it and comment on others as well. And this lesson plan will basically be a template to help you understand about how we'll keep designing. But the really simple thing that we're talking about today is a really easy way of designing PBL, and that's literally getting ideas from the world around you. And so as we look to the left where it says build a tiny house, literally you can just go on Pinterest or Google or anywhere and just Google a project idea. But be aware that you're not really taking that and using it verbatim. You still need to look at the elements, you still need to look at the outcomes. So unpack the idea that you get from someone else and align it to your standards. So that's the next step with creating a PBL or task. Take something that's already out there, a great idea. Actually look at your standards and look at what needs to come out of that. And then take some time to really unpack and flush out the task into a PBL. Now, tomorrow for part 2, we're going to really talk about how do you either create from scratch or flush out the details of that project in step 3 of if you customize or if you start from scratch on your own. And so that'll be the biggest focus or the complete focus of module 3. Look forward to seeing your comments and your assignment and your questions for the upcoming webinar we'll have on Thursday. Have a great day.